In the economy is the same thing. I talk about non-tariff barriers. You would be surprised. In my experience in the past year, I thought more developed economies would be more open and ready to engage and to open up for competition. It's the other way around. Less developed economies are more eager and more willing to open up because they have not much to protect inside. While countries at the middle of the economic development ladder have so many problems, so many vested interests, so many family powerful interests to protect. So there is no uniform formula to move forward. Some countries are more ready than others. Some countries are more open than others. Some countries are more reluctant than others for their own individual problems inside. We have to live with those realities. We have to live with those conditions. Considered as given has nothing to do about it. We can be frustrated about it, but we can't do anything about it. We have to try to live with those things. So that's for Malaysia. I hope I answered the question. For the Philippines, again, I think it's about different speed and about the farmers. How are they going to be protected? About the what is that? Minority rights. Yeah, there are communities, some more than others in our member states, who want to maintain their identities. And that's, I think, very much a human nature. We thought globalization would make everybody feel and adopt one identity, taste the same food, enjoy the same fashion, and read the same books, and watch the same movies and same TV entertainment programs. It's not so. Precisely because of globalization, many peoples, many communities feel the threat of losing their own control, losing their own life, losing their own cultures, losing their own identities. They have the rights and they have the opportunities to maintain and to protect those rights and those identities themselves. And that is in the cultural space, that is in the pillar of socio-cultural efforts and undertaking that we are doing together. Nobody is going to force to impose any new values on anybody. Each must be comfortable in its own, in his own, in her own place. And I think we have to learn how to accept this kind of individual minority values, minority rights, minority identities. Trying to erase, trying to impose, trying to contain those identities will only invite problems for many of us. And I think we have experiences in all the countries of ASEAN, if we are not careful, cannot impose, cannot obliterate, cannot erase individual small identities that we have in our borders. For Singapore, in the fields of human rights, in the field of environment, democracy, and corporate integration or corporate social responsibility, people have to be inventive. People have to be innovative. People have to be creative. The charter is there. The 3 community blueprints are there. And various projects and programs are there. The terms of reference for the human rights body is there. The appeal to the lofty principle of democracy is there, in the principle, in the purpose of the charter. I think if they are free, if they are given the opportunities, if they are, again, inventive and creative, I think the ASEAN process, the ASEAN mechanisms are more than ready to interact and to listen and to hear from various elements in our society. You ask on the issue of Myanmar. If I don't answer you, you will say I am copping out. But the issue of Myanmar has been an issue before Myanmar joined ASEAN. It has been an issue during the time that Myanmar is the member of ASEAN. Remember last year in New York, there was a very, very strong statement, unprecedentedly strong statement, under the chairmanship of Singapore, in New York, about what happened in Myanmar. And that was a reference point for ASEAN in the international community, that ASEAN could come up with such an expression of concern on the issue. Very few months later, ASEAN and the international community were invited in to help deliver goodwill and assistance humanitarian to the victims of Cyclone Nargis, with the full cooperation and support of the government of the Union of Myanmar. The pressure and the expectation and the hope are all still there that things are going to develop in the right direction. Real national reconciliation is going to take place. Peoples of ASEAN have expressed concern. Members of parliament across ASEAN have joined together to express concern. Media of ASEAN have written expressing concern. Academics, NGOs. This is a new era that ASEAN is evolving into an identity that is willing to express concern about each other for the higher interests of ASEAN as an organization, as a group. With the Charter, any issue is on the table. With the Charter, every issue is legitimate. With the Charter, it's up to the leaders, up to the ministers, to pick and choose and ask questions and express concern about what is going on within the landscape of ASEAN, because this is a community. This is not an association as before. So I think it is again up to us to be creative about it, up to us to find ways and angles to put in our contribution and our participation on all the issues that you ask: human rights, environment, democracy, corporate social responsibility. I think if we are going to be a compassionate society, and we want to be, if we are going to be a community of caring societies, and we want to achieve that, then all elements of ASEAN will have to put our hearts together, respecting each other and willing to listen to the problems of each other, and always maintaining the higher interests of ASEAN in mind. 10 years ago, I introduced this idea called flexible engagement. It was resoundingly rejected. Maybe it was too early. 10 years on, all these issues are being discussed far more than I had expected 10 years ago. That is an evolutionary process of ASEAN. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Surin. I have one burning question, but I will save it because now it's the turn for Thailand and Vietnam. Thailand, are you there? Good morning.
Yes, can you hear us?
Yes.
Good morning.
Good morning. Can you present your question, please?
Okay, good morning. Good morning to Dr. Surin Pitsawan. Yes, we're from Thailand, and you can see, quite familiar faces, around us. It's like, people from the NGOs, from the, academia, and some are from the media agencies and, international institutions. The questions that we would like to ask, some that you are already answered, which are concerned, with Myanmar and Burma issues. But the other ones, this is, we're going to ask about the economic crisis and what is the status and progress of the ASEAN Monetary Fund, and how can the, amid the global financial crisis, what is the mechanism and measures that ASEAN can help protecting the poor, and vulnerable group, and how can ASEAN help member countries to come up with a long-term stabilization measures to prevent future crises? Okay.
Wow, very tough questions. And now to Vietnam. Good morning, Vietnam. Will your questions be as difficult? Vietnam, can you hear us?
Bên đầu bộ Việt Nam xin kính chào ông tiến sĩ Surin Pitsuwan.
From Vietnam, I'd like to say good morning to Dr. Surin Pitsuwan, ASEAN Secretary General. We welcome your very informative speech, and my question is, the initiative of putting all ASEAN people into the central point of building the ASEAN community is the move in the right direction, but the risk is if ASEAN leaders don't have a mechanism to make sure that all the opinions are duly respected, then I think as time passes we'll have some negative impact. And my question is, what is your practical solution to be submitted at the upcoming summit on a possible mechanism to encourage and ensure that the voices of all ASEAN people are heard from now until 2015? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Vietnam. I turn to Dr. Surin to answer these tough questions in the time that is now available, which is not much.
Thank you very much. It is tougher and tougher. From Thailand, I think I have addressed the issue of Myanmar. Myanmar is a member of the family. We all treat Myanmar with due respect, and we wish that whatever steps being taken would lead to genuine national reconciliation. It's the wish, it's the hope, it's the goodwill that the people in ASEAN, and certainly as demonstrated during the Cyclone Nargis incident, the world out there is quite ready to lend hands in order to help people in distress, and we're willing to put aside any other agenda or any other concerns. So I think the wish is there, and all ASEAN stand ready to extend hands in order to make sure that whatever is being adopted, what measure is being taken, will lead to a true and genuine national reconciliation as soon as possible. ASEAN is working together and cooperating very, very closely to face the economic crisis, the world economic crisis. This time it did not start here, but it originated from outside in the developed parts of the world. A few years ago, there was a crisis that emanated here in our region. We learned a lot, we transformed, we reformed, and we instituted many, many safeguard mechanisms, monitoring system. We have become much, much more prudent as economic entities, economic players. Savings in the region is higher the rate of savings in the region is higher than any other region in the world. In Europe, in North America, savings could be in the minus because of the social safety net system that they have. You are unemployed, you will be taken care of. You are sick, you'll be taken care of. You need help, you'll be taken care of. The social safety net system. We don't have it as sophisticated. We don't have it as developed. Precisely because of that, our families, our parents, our grandparents tend to save more than any other parts of the world. Over 40% on the average of our income are being saved. The problem is we do not know how to mobilize those savings into productive use, to propel, to invest, to build infrastructure in our economic systems. And that's why the idea of Asian bond, people are thinking even far ahead. Asian Monetary Fund, not ASEAN Monetary Fund, Asian Monetary Fund, because ASEAN is too small. But even that, even Asian Monetary Fund is still way, way into the future, not now. But as I said before, together as a region, East Asia, ASEAN and East Asia, ASEAN and the 3 countries in East Asia are coming together and trying to commit ourselves to establishing a new pool of resources, not to replace the global institutions, the IMF, the World Bank, the owner of this system, but to have an alternative pool of resources that members in the region can rely on in time of duress, in time of crisis, in time of necessity. That should be welcome. Because I believe post-crisis, the world post-crisis will have to be a multipolar economic centers, multi-economic polars. Not only North America, not only Western Europe, but it will have to be regional polars of growth center, so that the economic system of the world can rest upon many, many centers of growth, rather than being lopsided, and when you are in trouble, all the world is in trouble, there's no other alternative. The hope of the world now is East Asia. The hope of the world now that we are going to at least become a pillar cushioning the impact of the world. We will be impacted upon, we will feel the negative result and consequences of this global crisis. Nobody is immune, but at least with our cushion, with our savings, with the reforms that we have put in place for the last 10 years, we are better off now than before. We will be less affected. So the strategy into the future would be turning to each other, pooling our resources, coordinate our policies, looking not only for short-term stimulating packages, which all countries are now doing, putting the money in the pockets of consumers so that they can spend right away in order to jumpstart the economies all across the region. The question is, if you only emphasize on the short term, stimulating, get the economies going now, how about the long-term preparation for the new upturn of the global economy 5 years, 3 years from now? So we have to think about the infrastructure. We have to think about job creation that would have long-term impact. We have to think about our seaports. We have to think about our rails. We have to think about our roads. We have to think about telecommunication system. We have to think about our human resource. Long-term investment in all these infrastructures, soft and hard, physical and human. Those are the kind of things that we are doing. And I think the World Bank is very much involved in this kind of strategy, very much supporting this kind of strategy, taking care of the vulnerables, taking care of the poor, taking care of the marginalized, but at the same time think about the future. How about the investment in the infrastructure so that we will be ready when the world is back on track in economic progress, in economic development again. From Vietnam, the socio-cultural blueprint provides for many, many ways in which the people's organizations can participate. People can participate in many, many ways. People can connect with us when we reach out, and we are trying to do that through this kind of activity. I call it the secretariat under my responsibility, I call it a networked secretariat, meaning that we do works through networking, meaning that we reach out through this kind of activities. We can't do it ourselves, but there are existing organizations and existing institutions, mechanisms. We only have to reach out. If a professional group wants to have their annual conference, we ask for one panel, ASEAN. What is ASEAN doing for your specific profession? Whether it's medicine, whether it's engineering, whether it's the farmers group, whether it is the teachers association, whatever organizations that exist out there, there is always an angle and dimension that ASEAN can contribute, can participate, can reach out to the membership of those organizations. I hope this networked secretariat that we have instituted will be welcome and will be used and will be utilized by the civil society, by the people of ASEAN. As I said, organized and unorganized. Write to us, appeal to the ministers. There are ways in which people can communicate. As I said, let me just say it again, if we fail in achieving our community according to the charter and the three blueprints this time around, don't just blame the leaders, don't just blame the diplomats, don't just blame the secretariat. We all have to share the responsibility of that failure because the space is open for everyone. Yes.
Thank you, Dr. Surin. Unfortunately, we don't have enough time for a second round. But before I close, there is one question that I would like to pose, Dr. Surin, and that is the question of the Rohingya. This has become a regional issue. Will it be raised at the ASEAN summit, and what is ASEAN's view on this problem? Thank you.
I thought the last question would be a softball question. No, as I said, with the charter, with the spirit, if not the, all the mechanisms in place, with the spirit, with the charter, with the letters, everything is legitimate. Every issue is up for the ministers and up for the leaders to bring up. Now, the issue of the Rohingyas, it's a very, very unfortunate issue. It is not an issue that one country can solve. It is not a country, is not an issue that we can ignore as a region. It is human beings, an issue of human beings in the thousands, floating precariously in the treacherous waters of the Indian Ocean, of the Gulf of Bengal and Mataban. It is not an issue of, these people are Muslims, these people are Christians, these people are Buddhists. It is an issue of all human beings. So it has to be approached, in my opinion, and I think that's the opinion of many leaders in the region, from the regional perspective. Now, Thailand has asked for a focused group meeting involving all countries affected by the issue. 6 countries: Thailand, Myanmar, Bangladesh, India, Malaysia, and Indonesia. Some members have responded positively. Some members are still waiting to make decision. But there is another process, which is called the Bali process, which was put in place during the early period of the war in Iraq, the war in Afghanistan, and the turmoil in Iran. A lot of those nationals floating through the Indian Ocean, through our waters, hoping to reach some friendly land somewhere. Indonesia was in the lead. Australia was a partner, very, very willing and supportive partner. Together, they established the Bali process to deal with that issue of people, migration, illegal, without papers, smuggling. If that mechanism is already in place, if that process is already in place, we should not have to reinvent the wheel here in the region. We can rely on, we can resort to, we can go back. And I think it would be most welcome if this process can be resurrected. And I think some of the leaders, I understand the Thai foreign minister and the Indonesian foreign minister have already discussed the possibility of this process being utilized to address the issue of Rohingyas. Let me emphasize, it is not an issue of religion. It is not an issue of culture. And it is not even an issue of economic desperation. There are thousands of human beings floating in the waters of the Indian Ocean. We as human beings can do no less than extending our hands and help them to survive to the best of our ability. The responsibility is not as ASEAN. The responsibility is not as Thai, not as Indonesian, but as human beings. All of us are. No man is an island entire of itself. Any man's death, any man's suffering, any man's potential death affects me, diminishes me as a human being, only because I am a part of mankind. And I hope in a region of diversity like ASEAN, like Southeast Asia, that sense of humanity is in every culture, every civilization of ours here in the region. We can only appeal to our sense of humanity and suffer the fate that those people are now facing, only because we are human beings, not because we are any other identities. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Surin. And on that note, I would like to close the session. Dr. Surin, you have heard all the concerns and the issues raised by the peoples of ASEAN around the region. And I hope that these concerns and issues will be raised during the upcoming ASEAN summit. To the participants around the region, thank you very much for being with us this morning so early. And we hope that you will join us again when we have a post-ASEAN summit briefing. Along these lines also another video conference. And I hope that all our aspirations will be addressed by the summit in Hua Hin. So Dr. Surin, our participants, thank you again very much for making this morning a success.
Thank you very, very much. And I understand in Singapore, my predecessor, Ambassador Severino, is there. Hello, Rad. Thank you very much for being with us. And I hope what we have gone through has removed some kind of anxiety that I would be offside, that I would be jumping ahead of the leaders. I have not done that. My attempt is to make sure that the word ASEAN as being a people-oriented organization is being given full meaning, and this is one effort to do that. This is an invitation to make sure that the words of the Charter is being implemented truly to the best of our ability. And I hope that with this kind of exercise, nobody is going to feel anxious that we are, jumping ahead of the leaders in Hua Hin. We are not. I have not revealed anything. I have not encroached upon their prerogative, the ministers of the leaders. I'm only inviting you to watch and to contribute and to participate. Those are the words that our leaders have sealed their signatures on, and I think they would be more than happy to listen to your voice. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much again, Dr. Surin. I hope that you will be able to convey our aspirations to the leaders of ASEAN, and I wish you all the best and success for the upcoming summit. So again, thank you very much to everybody. I hope to see you all again on the post-summit briefing. Goodbye and good morning.